And welcome back to the Norwalk PC in very, very sunny California right now. It is quite hot right now, but we are very excited to bring you a very exciting match right now for our round 5 of our PC. This would be our last round before the top cut.
Featuring a very cool team that will wash away the heat of summer.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, Terry. That was really clever. I like it. But you guys on stream will see in a brief second as the players are readying up. We had a very good turnout today. It was about 25 people. 25 people.
Yeah. So it dodges the dreaded top 8 cut, top 4 CP territory.
So very happy about that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And we're gonna get right now and get started.
Oh, that's awesome. So we see some spicy picks here and there. So from Joshua, we see Manectric, presumably Mega, Amoonguss, Coco, Xerneas, Groudon, and Cresselia.
And on Jesus' side, we have Tapu Fini, Palkia, Kyogre, Ludicolo, Slowbro, and Mega Swampert. I actually played this team just a little bit earlier, and it is incredibly fun. I hope you guys on stream will really enjoy it. It's a very, I think it's a very well built team, and on Joshua's team size, this is a pretty unique team.
They both have very unique touches.
Yeah.
So I believe, mono water teams get a lot of flack, but like it's clearly been constructed to be common threats to be able to make it this far. So I would like to move away and talk about some of the more unconventional picks from Joshua's Xerneas Groudon, mainly the Mega Manectric and the Cresselia. Cresselia was a big deal in 16, but the format has moved away from babysitting a Primal Groudon with Skill Swap. So
yeah, but I think it might still come in play just because obviously Jesus relies on rain so much.
Yeah, in a way, it was like a very, very good pick situationally for this matchup, given the Skill Swap that can invalidate the switches, and without an airlock option, I feel like the Skill Swap will be very difficult to beat. So if I were Jesus, I would prioritize on dealing with Cresselia in some form.
Yeah, and I think Jesus needs to be careful of Josh because he has 2 electric type Pokemon against a mono water team.
Yeah, I'd be scared about Discharge.
Yeah, presumably he's probably going to Mega Evolve that Manectric unless he does Discharge. It doesn't really make sense for him not to.
It may be like a modular thing, like when you need the Intimidate, you just go into Intimidate.
Yeah.
But if you want to Lightning Rod, Discharge spam, there are tools.
That is true. Yeah, this would be really interesting to see. Jesus most likely brought his Swampert just to be able to deal with that, but we'll be curious to see what else he brings as he leads with the classic Moon Series Ludicolo and Kyogre, with Josh leading with the Manectric Amoonguss.
Oh, interesting. So I like the Amoonguss lead here since there's lack of big damage that can punish the Amoonguss. Well, there is the Water Spout, but Amoonguss is probably one of the better Pokemon that can take it. And Mega Manectric has some control tools to lower incoming special and physical damage.
Yeah, Manectric actually has a really interesting moveset. I feel like not a lot of people have been able to really look into it. It gets Eerie Impulsed, which I'm not entirely sure if Josh is running, but we can talk about if he does run it.
Yeah, personally, I don't think it's going to be very good here, given the fact that, well, the Ludicolo is faster, and it may pack a Z, and a Z Hydro Pump will knock out that Mega Manectric. But a hard Groudon switch, perhaps?
Just as a spoiler, is actually not Z Water. Since I did play him earlier, he has a very, very interesting amount of tech stuff. As Joshua does bring out the Groudon as expected.
I like this switch, yeah. This is good. Assuming a water move like Hydro Pump and a Grass Knot, there aren't that many out-of-weather options that Jesus has against the opposing Groudon and the Manectric. So Manectric will be able to do something. Well, that's the idea, but we'll see what the...
Yeah, we'll see. Jesus has some very, very cool techs I was able to lose to.
Ooh.
So...
hate to see it.
Yeah, but as Josh Mega evolves, he gets the Intimidate ability, swapping out that Lightning Rod. Most likely he'll probably attempt to do a Volt Switch. Manectric also gets... that one fire move. Oh no, it is blanking on my mind. But Manectric gets a very interesting fire move. He gets Flamethrower along with a double target fire move as Jesus goes for the Gracium Z and his
interesting.
Presumably probably into the Manectric slot unless he really called this Groudon switch.
I really like this item choice on Jesus because, well, without your own airlock or Cloud9 user, you're not able to proactively reset weather on that turn and have it be able to attack Groudon. So like being this grass type attacker that can still maintain some utility in Sun, this may make up for the fact that it's harder for the weather positioning.
Yeah, I totally agree. And this is just a very, very clean knockout in Manectric.
It's one of those blind things that you can't really play around. So like this is something that Joshua will have to look at and play around going into games 2 and 3.
Yeah, and something to note is that Joshua's Groudon's pretty bulky with that HP stat you guys can see on stream. 207, that's pretty fairly bulky.
Yeah, 8 and -1, minimizing passive damage. It's max HP. It's 252 EVs.
Oh, okay, that's.
But it's I think, yeah. But it's a good number, and like if you're not really sure or not interested in running complex damage calcs and having specific spreads, it is sometimes better to use a generalized spread with a very generalized playing to its strengths kind of role and just play it very safely.
Yeah, and Joshua smartly brings in his Moongus because it really does threaten a lot of Pokemon on his team, and then Jesus responds by taking out the Tapu Fini, preventing any sort of Spore from going off, which I think is a great way to stop that Spore from really
I wonder what
causing any
moves
issues.
Amoongus has to apply pressure against the two things that it's facing against.
Yeah, Ludicolo goes for the Solar Beam, which is a very interesting Groudon tech that I also lost to. And, ooh, just barely 2K with the Bulk Up.
Interesting.
This is new. I don't think I've ever seen that before. As he goes for a Spore, and it obviously does nothing.
I wonder if there's like a Groudon calc for that, because otherwise I feel like Swords Dance would have been more decisive for this particular situation.
Yeah.
But I would also like to argue that +2 is better in general. But there must have been a defensive calc to make Bulk Up worth it.
I agree. You don't necessarily always need that +2 from Sword Stance. It's just really useful after Intimidate to be able to kind of reset it.
Yeah. But we know that there is no Heal Pulse from Joshua's team, so we'll see how he makes use of the bulk after the chip.
And he decides to switch out his Amoongus for his Xerneas, which is interesting because I was thinking he might actually Rage Powder.
I'm a big fan of the switch because, well, I don't think Amoongus does anything here, and like it slowly accumulates damage until, well, it falls to an attack. So I'm honestly happy with this positioning. It doesn't look great, but I think that's like the whole point because, well, you can't really see that Z Solar Beam coming from game 1.
That is true. Yeah.
So this is more of a product of that than anything.
Yeah, and Jesus reveals his Haze, which will probably prevent Joshua from going for any sort of Geomancy. As that is a little bit risky as he's able to get that berry off, removing that +1 attack and +1 defense from that Groudon. And now his Ludicolo is in a pretty good position. It did pretty much almost KO'd that Groudon, but is kind of stuck in a really awkward position as the Groudon is probably faster than Ludicolo. I'm like 90. I think it was. I didn't catch it.
Assuming the Xerneas has Dazzling Gleam, this is like a very, very dangerous turn for Jesus because you just switch out the Groudon to preserve weather control, and then you just Dazzling Gleam, and then you chip or KO the Fini, and you KO the Ludicolo knowing its item. So I don't actually feel like that Haze was threatening. If anything, that was an information that I feel like could have been managed a little bit more carefully. Just one more turn.
Yeah, as Groudon goes to the Protect here, trying to stay alive, as goes for a Moonblast, which is interesting. Maybe he doesn't necessarily have Dazzling Gleam on his Xerneas, because I definitely feel like he would have went for the Dazzling Gleam there.
This is a very confident play coming from Joshua. He seems to think that he can maintain perfect weather control without having to switch it out, and honestly, that may be better based on how Jesus positions his water types.
Yeah, and I think one thing that's really interesting to know is that Tapu Fini is running Leftovers, which isn't really an item we see on Tapu Fini as the berry is just so popular. I'm not sure if that's really going to pay out for Jesus in the end based on the dividends, but as he switches in his Kyogre, he gains immediate weather control. Probably just go for a quick little water.
So about the Fini set, I think it's a little bit not in line with the pace of play of doubles, but if you give it a couple turns, it generates like a lot of value. And we see a lot of top players elect for variations on Fini's item. Not everyone is running the pinch berries. We see a lot of citrus because it's better for the doubling scenarios, and we see seed to live specific hits. So I think it is possible to deviate a bit, and if this is something that helps him play the long game, I can see it putting in work.
Yeah, and I definitely don't like fault Jesus for it because you obviously have to put like new and unique things on a mono water team to make it work.
Yeah, but I do agree with you. I think if there was a pinch berry on the Fini, I would have been scared to go for the Dazzling Gleam.
I agree. As we see a Z move from the Xerneas? Am I wrong?
Interesting.
Okay, this Z Geomancy would be
So this kind of plays around the Haze by just not setting up, because this is an attack. After seeing the Haze, there's no way this can be Z Geomancy. That would be a game-losing error.
Yeah, I agree.
Having said that, who knows? Maybe it's like a mind game thing, and like, if all you need is that one turn.
Yeah, I agree. That Kyogre does hang on though, but the Pressless Blades doesn't connect. Oh, it's a double connect for Jesus on Jesus. That's really unfortunate.
That's. So Xerneas Groudon really displaying its supreme offensive synergy here. The offensive type synergy between Fairy, Fire, and Ground is fantastic because all of Fairy's resists get hit by Fire or Ground. There's nothing that actually resists all three at once.
Yeah, and I agree. And as Jesus reveals that he does have the Swampert in the back as predicted because he does have those two electric types, so I definitely don't blame him for bringing that. And I think Jesus really needs to kind of think about a new game plan just because of the fact that Zerndon naturally versus Palkia Kyogre is kind of a bad matchup for Jesus. So he probably wants to think about some sort of new way to work around the Xerneas and Groudon next to each other.
Yeah, so the idea with rogue strategies is that you make up for the lack of perceived power by having an informational advantage. But now, Jesus is in a weird spot where he revealed the information, got the early game advantage, but it looks like without some dice rolling, this game is... Oh wow. Yeah, okay, this game is... So yeah, if I was Jesus, I'd be in a situation where I want to think about maybe using a different trick. Since obviously I don't know his full set, but given the way the team's constructed, it may be possible to play that information management game and throw your opponent off with something that they might not expect.
Yeah, and that grass knot kind of does make it really difficult for Jesus. He isn't able to really be able to kind of outspeed that Xerneas or a KO after a GM misses. So I think probably his best bet right now is to use either that Slowbro or Palkia to help set up Trick Room. And I think that'll probably be one of the better ways to get around this, just because now that he knows that Xerneas has Grass Knot. I'm really surprised Josh actually revealed it.
Yeah, but now we know his set, and like, it's pretty cool in this context because it's very clear that the Haze Feeny is the centerpiece to dealing with Xerneas. But if you're using a set that doesn't actually depend on Geomancy as much as the Power Herb set, then that's not really a good stylistic match.
Yeah, and I think Jesus is also hoping the Swampert would be able to do some good damage to that Xerneas. That Earthquake actually did a pretty good chunk. I was very surprised.
Oh yeah, it hits pretty hard, but like, I'm not sure if Double Weather Abuser is like necessarily going to give him the most options defensively when it comes to beating the opposing Groudon.
I agree.
Because it seems like if the Groudon is always kept in the back with a threat to switch in, there's not really a lot of things that Jesus can do in that immediate turn. He will have to react to it the turn after, and that can be identified and punished by, the opponent.
I think that Jesus would probably have to bring the Slowbro Finning Kyogre and either the Swampert or Ludicolo in this, just because of the fact that he was just kind of getting outsped, as his team is pretty slow, as he does have 2 Trick Room users to be able to capitalize off of that.
Yeah, I would like to see a Trick Room centric plan rather than a Swift Swim centric plan, because both Swift Swim users are not faster than base 99, so it will still be slower than a boosted Xerneas, and like, I guess given the set here, the Geomancy isn't going to come into play, especially after seeing the Haze Feeny. But +0 Xerneas is still faster than either of the Weather Abusers. Oh, this is
incredibly
This is
not actually bad for Josh.
Yeah, this doesn't look good at all, because we saw last game that it's faster. Maybe he thinks that there's a speed tie. I am not sure. But barring a speed tie, I think this was potentially a game-costing mistake.
Yeah, because I mean that Swampert now is able to just run through his entire team with any sort of stab you want. You can just actually go for the waterfall into the Groudon.
This is a turn 1 protect switch to Amoonguss turn. I can't see any other play that's like, well.
Amoonguss is gonna get hit pretty hard by the Earthquake.
Yeah, Water Spout and the move from the partner is gonna hit really hard.
Yeah,
and
I think Jesus might not be running Water Spout. Because on a team like that, you definitely want to be running Thunder.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like if there wasn't Thunder, I would have expected like a better anti-water kind of Pokemon. Maybe Gastrodon over Swampert. But I think the Swampert was the Mega Slot here, so it was like a slot-based team building choice.
Yeah, and as the Groudon wisely switches out, it doesn't want to get destroyed, and the Moongus does come in as you predicted. As we see the Swampert Mega Evolving, gaining that Swift Swim ability, being able to double its speed underneath the rain.
Origin Pulse should do like 30-40%. It's still not something you want to see.
You're
gonna take more damage than the damage you heal from a generator, and that means if you have Sash, it's not going to be activated when you switch it back in.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's potentially something that can affect the game.
This is really interesting because Jesus decided to waterfall into the Xerneas and go for an Origin Pulse.
I like it because I think he knew the switch. It's very safe to call the Groudon switch because otherwise Joshua loses the whole game.
Yeah, I totally agree there.
Oh, actually, that looks like... I don't remember my Amoonguss regenerator math, but that looks pretty close. That might be able to heal back to full after one switch.
Yeah, it maybe be a 1 or 2 HP off, but I think the real kind of the elephant in the room right now is.
But it's not that bad, yeah. Like it wasn't great, but I expected a lot worse. Like a Water Spout and like under 50%.
Yeah, I totally agree. But that Swampert still is the fastest one on the field, but Jesus has to watch out for the Spore coming in for the Amoonguss.
I'm a fan of Geomancy Rage Powder play, because the faster Pokemon, Xerneas, can't hit it without Earthquake.
Yeah.
And after Geomancy, it should be able to take Earthquake and something.
Should be able to, yeah.
And with Grass Knot potentially on the Among Us, it might scare off the Swampert.
Yeah.
Or the Kyogre, or both.
Jesus wisely switches out his Kyogre to be able to
So I
retain.
personally like the Rage Powder Geomancy play, but there are other plays that are potentially more aggressive or defensive that I think are good, such as the Groudon switch.
Yeah, and as he switches in his Groudon, being able to take advantage of that Solar Beam now, actually, from that Ludicolo, which is a really interesting switch from Jesus, which I think is really great, being able to apply that immediate fake out pressure.
I'm not sure if I'm a big fan of this. I think it's a little bit of a scared play. But I mean, that's good damage on the Groudon. So.
Yeah, Solar Beam will KO now, actually. Based off of, as Xerneas goes for the Grass Knot, which will obviously destroys Swampert.
Oh yeah, it's Z, it's not Power Earth. Geomancy would have not been a play here. But that's not bad, yeah.
Yeah.
This is another Protect switch to Lungus turn. I mean, like, who am I kidding?
And yeah, as Jesus brings in his Kyogre, giving that.
Yeah, honestly, that fits in very nicely with Joshua's plan. The tech slot that Joshua dedicated to Xerneas of all things, Grass Knot replacing the commonly used Dazzling Gleam, it's definitely paying dividends in this particular set.
Yeah, I totally agree. As Jesus is in a really awkward spot right now. He could go for the Fake Out, but I don't really think that's going to accomplish too much. Josh has applied so much offensive pressure right now with that Xerneas. I mean, he's probably going to switch out that Groudon to be able to preserve the Weather War for later. Yeah, as the Mungus is coming, which is pretty smart. And it is
it's full,
max
yeah,
HP
nice.
now, yeah.
So that's the difference between Pulse and Spout. That's something that people might want to consider when building or changing a team.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think it's like a really safe read for him to go for that. So I'm a fan.
Double up into, wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I like it.
Yeah.
But it still doesn't win Jesus the game because now it's a free switch to Groudon.
Of
so
course, yeah.
so now you just Grass Knot and Keyblades. Could go for the Z option. It really depends on what's in the bag, but like I would give this I would give the current board to Joshua in terms of
I'm
favoriteness.
not sure. Just because now that Ludicolo is the fastest Pokemon in the field, Jesus switches out his Kyogre, he can go for a Z slot into any of them, which should
If I
do
were Joshua,
freezing
I would
damage.
switch out Groudon right here.
Yeah. He probably
If
just,
he doesn't, it might be weird, yeah. But I think
Jesus might actually read into that and just go for a water type attack, which would be really interesting.
that would be interesting.
That'd be very ballsy play.
Yeah, I think that would mean that he eats a Grass Knot on the Kyogre though. So maybe that's not something that he wants to consider.
Yeah.
I would like to see him play a little bit more proactively, attacking, to actively pursue his win conditions. I feel like right now it's a little bit too reactive to the opposing Groudon, given the super hard reads.
I agree.
But I mean that's also the function of the team, given that it has no immediate answer to the switch, other than making hard reads. But given that Xerneas is faster than either of them outside weather, I'm skeptical of I guess the ability of Kyogre and Ludicolo to beat this two just like head on.
Yeah, I agree. And Jesus wisely protects his Kyogre as the Xerneas goes for the Z Twinkle Tackle into Kyogre. Does very little damage.
Yeah, that wastes the utility of conserving the last pick and the positional advantage of switching it out right now.
Yeah, I think that was a really smart play from Jesus, as Joshua was probably expecting Kyogre to switch out, so he would just get a free knockoff.
Yeah. Like with the current mons that are left, it definitely forces certain reads. It forces players to make decisions based on what they think their opponent will do, rather than some kind of pre-planned strategy.
Yeah, this is really interesting, deciding to target down the Xerneas, which will 100% get that KO right there. He's probably thinking that he's going to be able to KO the Groudon with his Ludicolo later. Volcubs. Ooh, I don't know if Fire Punch should KO Ludicolo, but of course Kyogre just switch out and Ludicolo could protect. As this is now 2-3 in Jesus' favor, actually, so he could just switch out his Kyogre and just immediately win the weather. Ooh. We didn't say this last game, so we're not entirely sure what his set is, but it's definitely going to cause a huge problem for Jesus. I think his best play is honestly to protect Ludicolo, switch out Kyogre, so that he can ensure that he gets Swift Sim later on.
And Joshua's win condition is to remove Ludicolo right now. Well, not right now, but as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Because the idea is that the Kyogre sweep cannot happen. If the Kyogre sweep happens from this position, there is nothing that Joshua can do. Well, not the Kyogre sweep, but the rain sweep that started by bringing in Kyogre.
Yeah.
Because once the weather is back in Jesus' control, Ludicolo is going to outspeed everything.
Yeah, and Jesus brings in Tapu Fini to be able to ensure that there's no electric terrain for the Tapu Koko to take advantage of. As he goes for the
Actually-
Electro Web. Ooh.
Okay, given that move, I would like to guess that the Coco is using a Self Vest.
Yeah.
And if that is the case, this is still a game that is going on.
Yeah.
It's a little iffy because I want to see what filler options that the set has before determining how much pressure it can apply to the Ludicolo. But yeah, I mean,
Ooh,
with the
that's a
Groudon
crit on that Solar Beam.
with the Groudon going down, I don't think the crit really mattered.
Yeah,
I feel like the best play here was to either stay attacking or conserve based on what I think my opponent will do. So, I feel like if I were Josh, I'd be thinking of stuff like Crest right now. I would really want to maximize that weather control since I feel like the lack of immediate answers to that is so crippling when it comes to this matchup.
Yeah, I agree. And as Joshua reveals, the Volt Switch is a pretty common move on AB Coco, as long as Nature's Madness and Skydrop, as we see that oh, okay, very interesting. Jesus deciding to reveal the Heal Pulse on his Finny, be able to bring his Ludicolo up to full health. So it's going to be pretty hard for Joshua to KO that Ludicolo now, unless it has Skydrop. But even then, it's still kind of leaving the Coco kind of vulnerable, because Skydrop is really only useful when you have a partner next to you.
Brave Bird's kind of a thing, but
That's
it's not
true.
it's not commonly used.
I don't think that it's a thing that singles.
And
for
Moon.
Sure, yeah.
Well, like yeah, it won a Moon regional, but aside from that one example, I'm not sure if it's like a widely used move.
Yeah, and Joshua decides to forfeit, not really wanting to give up more information to Jesus, as it seemed like a pretty one-sided way near the end.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like I'm just very, very into the Crest plan right now because of what just happened. It seems like Jesus believes in the strength of the double Swift Swim, and it just seems a little one-dimensional versus opposing Trick Room. Once the Trick Room goes up, I'm not sure what he can do, other than preemptively calling the Crest Spring by bringing Slowbro and trying to out-Trick Room the opposing team.
Yeah.
But that's not something you just call like out of nowhere, right? It's not something you just mix up just for the sake of it. It's
Yeah.
something that requires maybe a little bit more deliberation.
And Josh doesn't know which one of his Jesus' Pokemon has Trick Room, as both Slowbro and Palkia can learn Trick Room, so it's a little bit risky play to be going for.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
One thing that Jesus can always do is just lead both of them, Slowbro and Palkia, to just kind of throw off his opponent. But I really don't think he's going to be bringing Palkia based on the two plays that have been going on so far. As you predicted, the Cresselia does come out.
I think this should have happened last game, but I mean, sometimes we think that because we won game one, it's okay to not reveal information. So again, there's that comparison of the utility of saving information and bringing a plan that you think is like custom tailored.
Yeah, and this is a pretty great lead right now for Jesus, as if he does switch in the Groudon, he can just Earthquake, call that, and just go for another Ice Beam.
Yeah, like it's game 3, so there isn't really a risk to not to reveal your strategy, because if
Yeah.
you don't reveal it and lose, then you just lose.
That is true.
And winning revealing information is much better than losing, I'll say that.
Yeah, but right now we have the Crest on the field, and we have no idea what it does right now, but it was pretty widely used.
It was
Excuse
one
me.
of the meta-defining Pokemon in 2016.
Yeah.
I started after that world, so I'm not a 16 expert, but I believe the most common sets involved Trick Room and Skill Swap.
Yeah, Trick Room, Skill Swap, then Ice Beam, and all like one other.
Yeah, we see like a slower set, but we also saw the modest speedy set used by Alex Gomez.
Yeah.
He had 134 speed on his Cresselia, so after one Icy Wind, he could outspeed Mega Gengar.
Yeah.
And Oko standard Gengar back then with Psychic. But it turns out they started creeping up their bulk, so they live Icy Wind and Psychic from max special attack Cresselia.
Yeah, so it's really interesting to see if Josh is going to implement that previous strategy from the infamous 2016 strat.
Yeah.
Azernia switches out probably into a Moongus. Okay. This
Yeah,
is
I'm a fan.
interesting.
I'm a fan. This is probably a hard switch into a Trick Room turn, given that after the first 2 games, Jesus would be very scared of the Groudon switch.
Yeah, I agree. And
And
Somber
yeah.
decides to protect, which is pretty smart.
Yeah,
so.
very, very defensive, careful play, and lets the Trick Room go up with no damage.
Yeah.
I think this looks really good for Joshua right now. Amoonguss potentially with Sasha, and potentially with a Grass type move to hit Kyogre and Swampert super effectively.
Yeah, what's really interesting here is that I would assume that Jesus' Ludicolo and Swampert are naturally pretty slow, since you don't really need to be investing a lot of speed in them, as they are both slow swimmers. So it's interesting to look at kind of the speed tiers, especially with the Xerneas, since we've already revealed that it has Grass Knot. As Joshua is switching in his Groudon, being able to obtain that weather control right now.
Yeah.
And this will be really interesting. I'm curious to see if Jesus predicted this goes for a solar beam.
I mean, absolutely. Given how the first 2 games went, I feel like this is the game for you to be making all the crazy beats. Because this is one game, all you need is one turn from this one game to win the set. And I just think that makes it so good for players to mix things up and try some crazy stuff.
Yeah, as Jesus decides to switch out his Swampert for the Tapu Fini to get that Misty Terrain to pretty much completely shut down that Amoonguss to prevent it from really doing a lot, unless that Sludge Bomb on that Ludicolo. It does good for that Spore, but it is blocked by that Misty Terrain pretty smartly. As Jesus goes for an Ice Beam into the Amoonguss, wanting to kind of target that instead of the Groudon with his Z move, which is pretty interesting. I probably was predicting to protect from the Groudon, so it's pretty wise call on Jesus' end.
I feel like this was a slightly short-sighted play from Joshua because the Fini in the back is a very established answer to Amoonguss. And now that the Amoonguss was the one that didn't switch, that half of the board has no pressure against Fini and Ludicolo. Well, Sludge Bomb would be a potential way out of it, but at this point, I think we can say that it doesn't have Sludge Bomb.
Yeah.
So I would have wanted to see an Amoonguss switch to Groudon personally, even if it eats an Ice Beam.
And as Joshua switches out that Amoonguss, and
Yeah,
Jesus
if this was the 2 that was on the turn before, on this turn, skill swap can happen, and Groudon will be able to have a very good turn.
yeah, it goes for the bulk up again.
And it gets it by a water move, maybe?
Interesting.
It seems like that kind of play.
Oh wow!
Yeah, this is
very lucky.
This is why people generally run fully accurate non-Z water moves because you need that one turn opening, and if you miss there, it may delay your win condition by like 2, 3, 5 turns, or maybe never.
That really sucks that Jesus has. I would have picked up a clean knockout.
You would rather have a 100% chance to do 80-90% usually than for you to get like a guaranteed kill.
Oh,
in this context, I think.
I do know that Jesus' Kyogre is very slow as when I played him, so I'm not entirely sure what Joshua.
Yeah, it depends on the Cresselia speed too.
Ooh.
Like in this specific example, I would like a slower skill swap.
Interesting. Okay, well, the Cresselia pretty much just did nothing there, as it was apparently faster than the Kyogre outside of Trick Room.
Yeah, if it was similar to Alex Gomez's 2016 set, maybe it could have been something that could have been played out of Trick Room, spamming Icy Winds until the opponent had -3, -4, and then outspeeding anyway.
Yeah, and Joshua is in a really bad spot right now since Jesus has 100% weather control for the rest of the game, and
Cresselia is kind of not doing anything now because its main niche was to set up the position for Groudon and to protect it.
Yeah.
But now with Groudon dead, Cresselia isn't capable of applying game-winning pressure.
Yeah, and I mean Cresselia pretty much just set up Kyogre for it, which is pretty interesting, as essentially saw the Ludicolo, as Ludicolo would actually move last out of all of these Pokemon since Trick Room is still up for the Tapu Fini. Xerneas uses Protect, and I would assume that the Kyogre will go for attack, probably Origin Pulse.
Yes.
Yeah. And let's see if it connects on the Cresselia, it will definitely KO it afterwards. Interesting to note that the Cresselia didn't have a berry. Not entirely sure what that item is on there.
Yeah, it could be a lot of things. Maybe because it's floating safety goggles for stuff like Amoonguss, Venusaur maybe.
But yeah, now Joshua is down to only his 2 Pokemon. Still doesn't have a lot that his Amoonguss can do.
So the reason why I wanted Cresselia in Game 2 is because if this happened in Game 2, then this can be something that can be adapted upon in Game 3. But because there wasn't enough time, enough turns to figure out the speed tier of Kyogre relative to Cresselia, when something goes wrong on that exact turn, there's not much you can do.
Yeah, and I'm kind of curious on the decision on putting Trick Room on his team, as his team is pretty naturally fast with that Tapu Koko, Manectric, and Zerndon.
Yeah, it might have been trusting in the ability of Amoonguss to win the game, and that's why against Ludicolo and Fini, it's seeing such a tough time getting through the objects.
I think that was maybe pretty risky just because of the fact that
Amoonguss has a reputation as a Trick Room killer, but the issue is that with items like Safety Goggles, there are many answers that are available, and people tend to seize that opportunity. So, as an Amoonguss player, you definitely want to be able to play around those techs by developing tools and plans to remove certain things, such as Safety Goggles. You can maybe have a knockoff user and be able to disable the Safety Goggles and put things to sleep that way.
Xerneas goes for the Z Moonblast into the Tapu Fini, which does not KO it, as he goes for a Calm Mind, and it gets a little bit a special defense boost, which should definitely come in handy for against that Xerneas. But Moonblast will definitely still kill it at this range. Really interesting to kind of look at the whole dynamic of not running a berry, because that would have helped a lot. But in this instance, it actually might be would hurt just because of the fact that Missing Terrain is gone and he doesn't want to get spored right now. So really, Jesus needs to be careful of that. He maybe wants to switch out his Tapu Fini to ensure that Missing Terrain.
Yeah, in this specific turn, I think, well, in this specific game, I don't think Leftovers was necessarily crucial. By the time Fini was able to enter the board, I feel like with Groudon being removed and everything, it's a bit of an uphill battle for Joshua.
Yeah, and I'm curious if Joshua actually has Geomancy or not, because he's only revealed 3 moves so far.
I would assume it because, well,
he would've used it by now.
generally the idea is that Fairy on Z gives you the option to do burst damage and set up like a super Geomancy on the over 2 turns, because on your first turn you get a +1 to everything.
Yeah.
Most people seem to think it's not worth it, but if built around, maybe that's an option you can go for.
Yeah.
And fortunately, there's a near full health Amoonguss serving as redirection, so maybe after removing Tapu Fini, Z Geomancy might be the only win con.
Yeah, but you already used the Z move, so you just have to go for a normal Geomancy.
Yeah, then I don't think that's worth it.
Well, it still would do a lot of damage.
Yeah, it's a little bit, the Fini's a little bit out of position, so I think the idea is to... Oh!
Alright.
Oh yeah, I remember
thinking
about that when Fairy and Z was first talked about. That's a cool set.
As we see the Z move from the Ludicolo coming out, probably going into the Xerneas. There's no reason to go to Mungus. This is really interesting, as Jesus might not necessarily want to haze here, as he does have that Calm Mind on his end, but it might be worth it. But I'm sure he probably did not predict a Calm Mind from the opposing Xerneas.
Still a fan of the Protect Spore play though. I feel like that takes less damage than getting boosted. Yeah.
Yeah, that did a pretty good chunk though, even at +1, which is interesting. As
yeah, it did. Maybe a +1 will come into play later and make me eat my words.
Ooh, that was a critical hit onto the Mungus. Not that it really mattered.
I'm not a fan of the Fini's thing, and I don't think that's a very safe play. I think this added unnecessary risk that Joshua can leverage to win this set potentially.
Yeah, especially since that Mungus is still just kind of sitting there.
I thought that
take at least 2 Ice Beams.
I thought that Fini was out of position last turn, and it should have switched out last turn specifically. But now that it's like this, I think it might be something that Joshua can just use. I mean, like, we take those, right?
Yeah, as Xerneas goes for the Moonblast, getting that
+1. That was big damage. Nice.
Yeah. And I'm assuming that he's going to go for Clear Smog to be able to... Oh.
Yeah, they're calling the switch.
That's smart. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, you want to stay, because if you actually, like, switch it out and get called, then that's, like... Then that's half your team disabled.
Yeah, and Jesus' leftovers are actually starting to get a little bit in handy, making me eat my words, as his Fini's been sitting on the field for quite a while.
Yeah, but I think the end game here is a little bit messy, so like leftovers will get inflated value, because I think there's a couple turns that happen that will slow the game down, such as the Spore.
Right.
So I think assessing the value of leftovers here is a little bit tricky, since like it looks good, but it's also a situation where these recoveries probably wouldn't be happening in a more focused game.
Yeah, Kyogre decides to protect, probably just want to get Grass Knot by that Xerneas. As a +1, Grass Knot will do about 60% damage to Kyogres as the Grass Knot does come out, and the Tapu Fini is still asleep, which is unfortunate. Yeah,
that's kind of unlucky, since that was a haze turn.
Yeah,
that would have gone for the haze, and that would have been sealing the game, I think. But at +1, the Moonblast should be able to KO the Fini there, so I don't really think...
I'm not sure though, because the Fini is also at +1.
Oh.
Because it did get a Calm Mind off, so it still might be able to get a Haze off if he wants, but...
Like, again, I'm not sure of the attacking move on Amoonguss. I'm not even sure if it has it all, but I would have wanted to see that on the Fini.
Yeah, that's Clear Smog.
I would have wanted to see it on the Fini. But I mean, like, Moonblast onto Fini, Spore the partner. Like, yeah, I think... Rage Powder, interesting.
I don't know, I think he should have probably conserved that,
Now Fini wakes up and uses Haze, and this game is a lot tougher.
Yeah, but I feel like what he should have done was conserve that Swampert as he gets that +2 from the Swiss.
Oh, maximum sleep, is it? I haven't been keeping track of sleep turns, but I think this was the second or third.
It had to have been the third. But I think Jesus might have messed that up a little bit there, because the Swampert can definitely get that KO on the Xerneas, since it's a physical attacker.
Yeah, I
think
it
has Earthquake.
I think both players are slightly using different priorities than like commonly established. I think I think I would want to see like a Moonblast on the Feeny right now because that haze has to go like as soon as possible. And I think as the Kyogre player, you don't want to leave Amoonguss up, so the Ice Beam has to go into the Amoonguss. So I want to see a Moonblast on the Feeny and a Spore and or Grass Knot play.
I think Xerneas would actually go for the Grass Knot onto the Kyogre, to be honest.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Well, this turn if Feeny hazes, it's not great.
Never mind. I'm completely wrong. As it goes for the Moonblast,
if Feeny hazes, I think Jesus will win without crits. So this
wow,
has to
this
has to happen for the win. Because without this Moonblast, haze always went up, and Xerneas will not be able to beat the Kyogre. But I mean, with the Kyogre protecting, now it doesn't apply enough pressure to Amoonguss, so Joshua managed to steal this game.
Yeah, that was
slightly messy end game, but I mean, sometimes it happens, you know? In GS Cup, you have a lot of the same mons, so you have to like really take time seeing each other's speed, and because that wasn't done in Game 1 and 2, Game 3 sometimes has these weird moments where you have to make assumptions, and sometimes they don't work out. And that's something that players can think about going forward in later tournaments.
Yeah, and I think this was a really interesting play as Joshua pretty much just won a 2v4 with
Xerneas. And this is why Amoonguss is a very strong Pokemon, right? All that needed to happen was for Feeny to not switch, and Amoonguss takes over the whole game.
Yeah.
Out of Trick Room. So I think this game really shows the power of Amoonguss and the importance of terrain positioning. Even one turn of not having the terrain up will mean a game loss to certain teams in certain positions.
Yeah, and Jesus decides to play it out as Xerneas goes for the Grass Knot.
Always respectable.
Yeah.
But Grass Knot at +1 would do big damage, and
there's about 60% goes for a Spore just to make sure it doesn't wake up.
Yeah, second attack should seal the game, but this was a lesson in Xerneas and Amoonguss. It's really strong, guys.
Yeah, and I mean, Jesus had a really great team too with that mono water.
Yeah, it's kind of framed like a standard versus road, but I think both players had some really cool road strategies that they were able to leverage to win their games.
Especially with the Grass Knot Xerneas, definitely catching Jesus off guard.
Oh yeah, very cool tech. Congrats to both players. I mean, this was a fun set, and we got to see a lot of cool things that we might not have been able to see in other tables or other rounds.
Yeah, well, that would be our last round for Swiss. We're going to be moving into the top cut right after this short break.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in.